The quiet hours of a manor kitchen. There's a warmth that belongs to kitchens. It comes in the hours before dawn, a particular kind of heat. It seeps from stone walls. These walls have held decades of cooking fires. The stones remember yesterday's warmth. They release it slowly into the darkness. Tonight, you step into that warmth. You enter a world of rising bread. Flames crackle softly against iron grates. The work of feeding others happens here. It follows rhythms as old as hunger itself. We're easing into the life of a cook. A medieval cook in a manor kitchen. Not the drama of it. Just the quiet repetition. The comfort of familiar tasks. Tasks done the same way each morning. The gentle satisfaction of flour on your fingers. The steady warmth of fire at your back. If this calm history helps you rest, settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Adjust your pillow if you need to. Let the kitchen's warmth reach you, even here. Even now, we have nowhere urgent to be. The morning will unfold at its own pace. You can drift alongside it. You're the head cook of a manor house, a prosperous English manor. The year matters less than the season, and the season is autumn. The harvest is in. The larders are full. Smoke rises from chimneys across the countryside. It carries the smell of roasting meat and baking bread. The air is cooling now. Your kitchen is the heart of this household. Stone walls thick and solid, cool at the edges, warm near the hearth. A massive fireplace dominates one wall. It's wide enough to stand inside. Work tables stretch across the room. They're worn smooth by generations of hands. You oversee this domain of fire and flour, of salt and steam. Every meal follows ancient rhythms, rhythms as old as the manor itself. Waking in the dark. The rooster hasn't called yet. Your eyes open in the darkness. Your small chamber sits just off the kitchen. A privilege that comes with your position. The room is narrow but comfortable. A bed with wool blankets piled thick. A chest for your few possessions. Its lid worn smooth from years of opening. A window looks out over the kitchen garden. Though now there's only darkness beyond the glass. The stone walls hold lingering warmth. Warmth from yesterday's fires. You can smell wood smoke. It never quite leaves this place. It has seeped into the stones over the years. It's become part of the room itself. Every breath carries traces of oak and ash, of countless meals prepared and served. This smell is home, in a way no other place could be. You lie still for a moment, listening to the silence. The manor grounds are absolutely quiet. No voices drift from the great hall. No footsteps echo in the courtyard. Even the animals in the stable are sleeping. The horses stand motionless in their stalls. The chickens roost quietly in the coop. This silence belongs to you alone. These few precious moments before the day begins. You breathe slowly, feeling the wool blanket against your chest. The slight chill of air on your face. The contrast is pleasant. Warm beneath the blankets. Cool above. Your body knows it must rise soon. But there's no hurry yet. The fire in the main hearth is still banked, still breathing. The bread dough is still rising in its bowl. Everything waits for you, patient and unhurried. When you're ready, you swing your legs off the bed. The floor is cold flagstone beneath your feet. The shock of it is familiar, expected, almost welcome. It helps you wake. You reach for your wool hose in the darkness. Your hands know exactly where you left them, draped over the chest. The fabric is slightly stiff from yesterday's wear, but familiar. You pull them on slowly, then you stand and stretch. Your arms reach toward the low ceiling. Your spine lengthens after hours of rest. Your joints protest slightly, the way they always do in the morning. This is simply part of waking, part of the daily transition. From rest to work, the stiffness will fade as you move, as your body warms, as the work begins. Your hands find the linen shirt on its peg. The fabric is cool against your skin, but the chill fades quickly. The shirt is soft from many washings, worn thin in places but still whole. Then comes the leather jerkin. Its weight settles on your shoulders, like the beginning of responsibility. The leather has molded to your shape over years of daily wear. It fits like a second skin. You tie the laces by feel. Your fingers move through the pattern, left over right, pull through, left over right again. The motion is automatic. Finally, your shoes, sturdy leather, worn to the shape of your feet. The soles have been replaced twice, but the uppers are still the same. You slip them on and feel ready to begin. You light a rushlight from the embers. They burn in a small clay pot by your bed. The flame catches slowly at first, the dried rush reluctant to ignite. Then suddenly it flares to life. The light is warm and golden, pushing back the darkness, just enough to see. Your shadow looms huge against the walls, shifting as the flame flickers. You carry this small flame with you. You open the door to the kitchen. The fire awakens. The kitchen waits in nighttime stillness. Banked coals glow softly in the great hearth, breathing slow and red in the darkness. They pulse gently with each small draught, brighter and dimmer, brighter and dimmer. Sleeping shadows fill the corners. The high ceiling disappears into blackness above, its beams invisible. The hanging herbs just faint shapes. The air smells of cold stone and wood ash and the faint memory of yesterday's cooking. Everything is exactly as you left it. Everything waits for you, waiting to be brought back to life. Your first task takes you to the hearth. The main cooking fire never dies completely. Someone keeps it banked through the night, breathing, ready to spring back to life. You set down your rushlight on the stone mantel. You kneel before the massive fireplace. The opening is wide enough to roast an ox, though today's needs will be more modest. You can feel heat still radiating from the stones, warming your face and hands. The fire has slept well, maintaining its ember bed through the long hours. The ashes have insulated the coals, keeping them alive until this moment. You take the iron poker from its hook. The metal is cool in your grip, the handle worn smooth by generations of hands. You carefully separate ash from living coals, using gentle strokes, pushing the gray powder aside. without disturbing the embers too roughly. The ash falls away in soft cascades, revealing what lies beneath. Red eyes blink up at you, glowing softly from the gray powder, like small creatures waking from sleep. These coals have burned all night, keeping the kitchen from growing truly cold, keeping themselves alive for this moment. They pulse with inner light, deep orange at their hearts, cooler red at their edges. They're ready to receive what you'll give them. You add kindling first, thin strips of birch bark, prepared yesterday, curling and dry. They catch immediately when they touch the coals. The edges blacken, then glow, then burst into small flames. The light grows, pushing back the darkness a little more. You watch the flames dance across the bark, blue at the edges where the fire burns hottest, orange at the heart where it burns more gently. The sound is soft, a gentle crackling, like greeting an old friend. You've heard this sound every morning for years. The voice of fire waking to greet the day. It's a reassuring sound, a promise that warmth will come, that cooking can begin, that the kitchen will soon fill with useful work. Then come larger sticks, arranged in a careful pyramid, letting air flow through. You learned this structure years ago, from the cook who trained you, who learned it from the cook before her. The fire needs air to breathe, just like any living thing. You leave spaces between the sticks, for the flames to find their way upward. The pyramid grows, stick by stick, until it stands perhaps a foot tall. The fire responds. Flames climb through the pyramid, orange and yellow, crackling with increasing confidence. They lick at the sticks, finding the dry wood, consuming it eagerly. The light spreads across the kitchen floor, reaching toward the work tables and the hanging pots. Shadows retreat into the corners, growing smaller as the fire grows larger. The day is beginning. The wood you select matters, more than most people realize. Oak burns hot and long, perfect for the steady heat you'll need. Its flames are patient, releasing energy slowly over many hours. Applewood adds subtle sweetness, a faint fruity note that enhances pork and poultry. Ash burns even when green, useful when dry wood runs short. Beech burns clean and bright, leaving little ash behind. You've learned these differences over years, feeling how each wood responds to flame, how each releases its heat. Some woods spark and pop, throwing embers that can burn unwary cooks. Others burn quietly, their flames steady and predictable. This morning you stack 3 thick logs of oak. They're heavy, requiring both hands to lift. The bark is rough against your palms. You position them carefully, so they'll collapse inward as they burn, rather than rolling out onto the floor. This is simple safety, learned early, practiced always. The flames wrap around the new logs, beginning the slow transformation. Wood becomes heat. Heat becomes the energy for today's meals. This process takes time. You can't rush it. The logs must catch fully. Before you add more fuel, you settle back on your heels and watch the fire grow, feeling its warmth spread across your face and chest. The heat pushes outward in waves, each one reaching a little further, First it warms the hearthstones. Then it warms the air before the fireplace. Then it reaches you, touching your face, your hands, the front of your jerkin. You feel yourself warming from outside in. The chill of morning fading. Smoke curls upward into the massive chimney. The flue was built wide enough for a man to stand, arms outstretched, without touching the sides. The builders understood fire. They understood the need for air to flow freely, carrying smoke away from the kitchen. On winter mornings, scullery boys warmed themselves up there, perched on the smoke shelf, where the stone angles back. You found them drowsing more than once. Lulled by the rising heat, you always let them rest a few moments longer, before calling them down to work. The fire is building well now. The oak logs have caught, their surfaces blackening and cracking. Small fissures open in the bark, glowing orange from within. The heat pushes outward in stronger waves, warming the hearthstones, warming the air, warming you. You add 2 more logs, positioning them carefully. Atop the first 3, the fire will burn for hours, through breakfast, into dinner preparations. It must be fed steadily, never too hot, never too cold. You'll return to it many times today, adding wood, adjusting position, reading its mood. For now you leave it to build its strength, while you attend to other matters. The kitchen emerges. While the fire grows, you move through the kitchen, taking stock of your domain. The space is larger than many village homes. 2 great hearths face each other, across the width of the room, though only one is currently lit. Between them stand the work tables, thick planks of oak, worn smooth by decades of chopping and kneading. The grain of the wood shows through. Years of scrubbing have revealed it, dark lines flowing like rivers through the pale surface. In some places the wood has worn into valleys, where generations of cooks have kneaded bread or chopped vegetables. These depressions are familiar to your hands, comfortable places where your palms naturally settle. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the ceiling beams. Their shapes emerge slowly as firelight grows. Long stems tied together with rough twine, leaves dried to papery thinness, rosemary and thyme, sage and bay, bundles of lavender for sweetening the air. They sway slightly in the rising warmth, releasing faint traces of their scents. You breathe in and smell summer preserved for winter, gardens hanging in the air. Copper pots hang in graduated sizes along one wall. They catch the firelight and glow like small suns, their surfaces burnished by years of polishing. The largest pot could hold enough stew for everyone. The smallest is barely bigger than your fist, used for melting butter or warming small amounts of sauce. Each pot has its purpose, its place in the hierarchy of cooking. Iron cauldrons squat near the hearths, their bellies blackened by countless fires. These heavy vessels handle the biggest tasks, rendering fat, making stock, cooking the large batches of pottage that feed the servants daily. They're difficult to lift when full, requiring 2 people working together, but they're nearly indestructible. The same cauldrons have hung here for generations. A spit mechanism stands ready near the fire, its system of weights and chains, designed to turn meat slowly over the flames. The technology is simple but effective. The weights descend slowly as the spit rotates, their potential energy converted into steady circular motion, ensuring even cooking. Everything has its place. Everything waits for the day's work to begin. Treasures in the cold room. The larder door stands to your left, secured with an iron lock. You wear the key on a cord around your neck. It never leaves your person. The weight of it against your chest is constant. Familiar. A reminder of your responsibility. The stores behind this door are valuable. Weeks of work by many hands. Meat salted and smoked. Cheese aged in this very room. Grain purchased and stored against winter. You lift the cord over your head and fit the key into the lock. The mechanism turns with a solid click. Well-oiled and smooth. The door swings open, revealing darkness beyond. The temperature drops immediately, like stepping from summer into winter, in a single stride. This room was built against the north wall, where sunlight never reaches directly. In summer it stays blessedly cool, while the rest of the kitchen swelters. In winter it borders on frigid. Today in autumn it holds a perfect chill, keeping food fresh without freezing it. The air smells of aging meat and dried fruit, and the mustiness of long storage. There are layers to this smell, each food contributing its own note. The salt pork adds savory depth. The cheese contributes sharp tanginess. The dried apples offer faint sweetness. Beneath it all lies the cold stone smell, mineral and ancient. Your eyes adjust slowly to the dimness. There are no windows here, no source of light except what follows through the door. You let your hands guide you. They know this space in darkness, mapped through countless visits. Salted pork hangs from hooks along one wall. You can smell the salt and smoke, feel the firm surface when your fingers brush it. The pork was put up after autumn slaughtering, preserved to last through winter. Each piece represents hours of work, the careful butchering, the patient rubbing with salt, the long hanging in the smokehouse, the transfer here for final storage. The shapes are familiar to your touch. Here is a ham, its surface hard with cured fat, its interior holding months of potential meals. Here is a side of bacon, flat and wide, ready to be sliced and fried for breakfast. Here are sausages hanging in long ropes, their casings dried to papery tightness, their fillings seasoned with old recipes, wheels of cheese age on wooden shelves, their rinds hardening in the cool air. You find the one you want by feel. A medium wheel aged perhaps 3 months. The surface is smooth and dry. The rind developed perfectly. When you press gently, the cheese yields slightly, indicating proper texture within. This cheese will be perfect for today's needs. The cheese making happened last spring, when the cow's milk was rich with new grass. The dairy maid worked for days, heating the milk, adding rennet, cutting the curds, pressing them into forms. Then the wheels came here, to this cool room, where they'd spend months transforming. From bland curds into something sharp and complex, sacks of grain lean against the walls, like sleeping sentinels. Wheat and barley, oats and rye. You check each sack by feel. making sure the fabric is tightly closed, that no mice have found their way inside. The grain is secure. The manor will eat well through the coming months. The wheat will become bread, ground at the manor's own mill, mixed with water and yeast in this very kitchen. The barley will thicken soups and stews, will fill bellies that might otherwise go hungry. The oats will become porridge for cold mornings. The rye will add its flavor to darker breads. Each grain serves its purpose. You find the basket of eggs first, checking each one for cracks. Your fingers run over smooth shells, feeling for any irregularity. A cracked egg can't be stored. It must be used immediately. The shells are cool against your fingertips, slightly rough in texture, each one a slightly different shape. Today all the eggs are whole. A dozen good ones wait in their basket, pale brown shells, the color of the hens that laid them. These hens range freely through the manor grounds, eating insects and seeds. Their freedom gives the yolks deep orange color, their rich flavor. The butter crock sits where you left it yesterday, sealed with a cloth tied around the rim. You lift the lid and sniff. Still sweet, still fresh. The butter gleams pale yellow in the dim light from the doorway. You gather what you need for the morning. Eggs, butter, a small wheel of cheese, a piece of salted pork. You carry them carefully back, cradling the eggs against your chest, balancing the other items in your free arm. The temperature rises as you step through the doorway. The warmth of the fire reaches out, welcoming you back. You secure the larder door behind you and return the key to its place around your neck. The weight settles against your chest, familiar and reassuring. The stores are safe. The door is locked. You can focus on the day's cooking. The bread dough rises. The thought of bread pulls your attention. To the work table, the dough you mixed last night has been rising, slowly in its covered bowl, set near the dying warmth of the hearth. You carry the bowl to the main work table and set it down. The linen cloth covering it is slightly warm, damp with condensation from the rising dough beneath. You fold back the cloth carefully, peeling it away from the edges, where it has stuck slightly to the bowl. The smell of active yeast greets you immediately. That distinctive sour-sweet scent. That means the bread has risen well. The yeast has been working all night, consuming sugars in the flour, releasing gas that expanded the dough, developing the flavors that will emerge fully in the baked loaf. The dough has doubled overnight, maybe more. Its surface is smooth and slightly domed, stretched tight by the gas trapped within. Small bubbles dot the surface, where gas has risen and broken through. The color is pale, creamy white, the color of good flour mixed with water. You press your fingers gently into the pale mass. The dough yields beneath your touch, soft and slightly sticky. It springs back slowly when you release, showing that the yeast has done its work. This is what bread should feel like: alive, ready, full of potential, that your hands will help realize. Flour dusts the table in a wide cloud as you turn out the dough. The white powder catches the firelight, floating in the air like snow. You scatter more flour across the work surface, creating a smooth field for the dough to rest upon. The flour feels cool and silky between your fingers, fine as powder. It coats your hands, turning them ghostly pale in the growing light. Your hands begin their familiar work. You press into the dough with the heels of your palms, pushing it away from you, across the floured surface. The dough stretches and flattens, then springs back slightly when you release. Then you fold it back on itself, pulling the far edge toward you. The dough layers over itself, one fold enclosing another. Quarter turn. Press away. Fold back. Quarter turn. The rhythm is meditation. Push away. Pull back. Quarter turn. Repeat. The dough grows smoother under your palms, transforming from a sticky mass into something that feels almost alive. The surface becomes satiny, elastic. When you stretch it, it holds together, rather than tearing. The gluten is developing, the proteins in the flour linking together into long chains. That will give the bread its structure and texture. You continue kneading for several minutes, losing yourself in the repetition. Press and fold. Press and fold. Your arms settle into the rhythm. Your shoulders relax as the motion becomes automatic. The fire crackles softly behind you. The kitchen grows lighter. As dawn approaches the windows, you're aware of these things without attending to them. Your focus remains on the dough. The dough changes subtly as you work. It becomes less sticky, more coherent. The surface develops a sheen. When you poke it, it springs back more quickly. These are the signs of completion. Learn not from written instruction, but from years of practice, from watching the cook who trained you, from making thousands of loaves. When the dough feels right, you divide it into loaves, smooth and supple and springy. Your hands shape each one with practiced efficiency, tucking the edges under, rotating the dough against the table, creating surface tension. The motion is like cupping water in your palms, gentle but firm, shaping without crushing. The first loaf is for the high table, where your Lord will break his fast with his family. It gets extra attention, a tighter crumb, a more perfect shape. You spend additional moments smoothing its surface, ensuring its symmetry. This bread will be seen by important people, will be judged as a reflection of your skill. The remaining loaves will feed the household staff, the servants who keep this manor running. Their bread is just as good, just as carefully made, though perhaps not quite as finely formed. The flour is the same, the yeast is the same, the care you bring is nearly the same. Every loaf matters. Everyone must eat. The loaves go into their rising baskets, each one lined with linen, to keep the dough from sticking. The linen is smooth and cool, dusted lightly with flour. You settle each loaf into its basket and cover them with clean cloths, then set them near the hearth, where the growing heat will encourage their final rise. In an hour they'll be ready for the oven, for now they rest. You can almost see them breathing beneath their linen covers, slowly expanding as the yeast continues its patient work. This rising can't be rushed. The bread will be ready when the bread is ready. The kitchen comes alive. Light is beginning to seep through the high windows. The darkness that filled the kitchen is retreating, pushed back by the approaching dawn. What was shadow becomes shape. What was shape becomes color. The kitchen emerges from its nighttime state, revealing the full scope of your workspace. The copper pots gleam more brightly now, their surfaces catching the growing light, throwing it back into the room. The herbs hanging from the ceiling show true colors, greens fading to gray-green, purples dried to dusty brown. The whitewashed walls catch the light and amplify it, making the kitchen brighter than you might expect from the small windows high above. You stand near the fire and warm your hands, watching the flames dance over the oak logs. The heat soaks into your bones. Your face grows warm, then hot. You step back slightly, finding the distance where warmth is perfect without being overwhelming. The fire has reached a good working state, burning steadily, producing consistent heat. The day ahead will be long and demanding, but it will also be deeply familiar. You've cooked in this kitchen for years, more than you can easily count. You know its moods, its hot spots, its tricks and secrets. You know which places on the hearth burn hottest. You know how the draft changes with the wind. You know the sounds the building makes as it warms and cools with the seasons. The household begins to stir around you. You hear the first sounds of the manor waking, footsteps overhead in the sleeping quarters, soft at first, then more confident. As people rise from their beds, muffled voices drifting down, too faint to make out words, but clear enough to indicate conversation. The distant clang of the chapel bell, calling the household to morning prayers. The silence you treasured is ending, but in its place comes something equally valuable. The sounds of a living community, beginning its day. The manor is waking, and you are at its heart. Your two scullery boys arrive first, rubbing sleep from their eyes. They're young, perhaps 12 and 14 years old, still growing into their bodies. Their faces are pale in the morning light, their movements slow with lingering drowsiness. They wear simple tunics and rough hose, their feet wrapped in cloth rather than leather. They're the lowest members of the kitchen hierarchy, but they're essential to its functioning. You nod to them and gesture toward the water buckets. They know their first task without being told. Fresh water must be drawn from the well and carried to the kitchen. The buckets wait by the door, wooden with iron bands, empty and ready. Each boy takes a bucket and shuffles outside, letting a gust of cold morning air into the kitchen. You hear the well's chain clanking as they lower the bucket into darkness. This sound has greeted every morning of your working life, metal against stone, the creak of the windlass, the distant splash of the bucket hitting water. The well is deep and cold, its water clean and sweet. It has never run dry in living memory. The boys return with their buckets full, water sloshing slightly over the rims. They move carefully, trying not to spill, their arms straining with the weight. You direct them to pour the water into the large cauldron near the hearth. This water will be heated for washing, for cooking, for the 100 small tasks that require warm water. The sauce cook arrives next, already tying her apron as she enters. She's a small woman, with quick hands and a steady temperament. Her hair is pulled back beneath a linen cap, her sleeves already rolled above her elbows. She moves to her station without speaking, checking the pottage pot. That has been simmering overnight. The pottage is a thick porridge of grains and vegetables. It will feed most of the household. It has cooked slowly through the night, the low heat transforming simple ingredients into something warming and substantial. Barley has softened until each grain is plump and tender. Onions have melted into the liquid, adding their sweetness. A ham bone has released its flavor into the surrounding broth. She stirs it with a long wooden spoon, checking its consistency. The spoon moves slowly through the thick mass, meeting resistance, leaving a trail that fills in gradually. She tastes from the edge of the spoon, a careful sip of the hot liquid. She nods to herself, satisfied. The alewife appears from the brewery, ready to distribute morning rations of small beer. The beer is weak, meant more for hydration than intoxication. It's safer to drink than water in many places. The brewing process killing what might cause illness. She carries a large pitcher and begins filling cups for whoever passes by. The kitchen fills with people in activity, but the chaos is organized. Everyone knows their task. Everyone moves without collision, finding their place, beginning their work. This is the result of years of training, of establishing routines so deeply that they become second nature. You oversee it all, intervening only when necessary, trusting your team to do their work. Preparing the morning eggs. The eggs wait in their basket on the work table. You lift one and feel its weight in your palm. The shell is still cool from the larder, smooth beneath your thumb. You hold it up to the light from the window, checking for cracks or imperfections. The shell is intact, the egg perfect. You crack it against the rim of a wide bowl. The shell parts cleanly, a neat break around the middle. The yolk slides out, bright orange from the free-ranging hens. It settles at the bottom of the bowl and holds its shape, round and firm. Another egg, another clean crack, another yolk joining the first. You work through 8 eggs, each one opened with the same careful motion. The shells accumulate in a small pile beside you, their edges sharp, their insides glistening with remnants of white. The yolks sit together in the bowl like small suns, bright against the pale white surrounding them. A whisk made of bundled twigs stirs through the eggs. The motion is circular, unhurried. You watch the yolks break and blend into the whites. Orange becomes pale yellow, becomes a uniform golden liquid. Small bubbles rise to the surface. As air enters the mixture, the eggs transform from individual components into a homogeneous whole. You add a splash of cream. From the pitcher the dairy maid brought it first light. The cream is thick and pale, swirling into the eggs like clouds. It adds richness, adds fat that will make the finished eggs tender. You continue whisking, incorporating the cream fully. A pinch of salt comes next, from the precious box you keep locked away. Salt costs more than most people realize. It's brought from the coast in heavy sacks, carried by carts over rough roads. taxed at every town it passes through. You take only what you need. A small pinch between thumb and forefinger. The crystals are coarse, rough against your skin. They dissolve quickly into the eggs. As you continue whisking, the iron pan sits at the edge of the coals. You've set it there to warm gradually, letting the heat spread evenly across its surface. The pan is black iron, seasoned by years of use, until nothing sticks to it. The surface has become smooth, almost shiny from countless cookings. You check the temperature by holding your hand above the pan's surface. The heat rises against your palm, steady and moderate. The pan is not yet hot enough. You wait. A generous knob of butter goes into the warming pan. It begins to melt immediately, sliding across the dark surface in a golden pool. The butter foams gently, small bubbles rising and popping, with quiet sounds. The smell rises, rich and slightly nutty. You tilt the pan to coat the entire surface, the melted butter running to the edges and back. When the foam subsides, the butter is ready. This is the moment. You pour the eggs into the pan. They meet the heat with a soft hiss, spreading across the buttered surface. The edges begin to set almost immediately, turning from liquid to solid in a slow spreading wave. The color changes from transparent yellow to opaque pale gold. Your wooden paddle moves constantly, scraping the curds from the bottom as they form. The motion is gentle, more pushing than stirring. You draw the cooked egg from the edges toward the center, allowing liquid egg to flow into the cleared space. The process creates soft curds, rather than a firm sheet, keeps the eggs tender rather than tough. The heat requires constant attention. You lift the pan away when the eggs cook too quickly. Return it when they slow. This dance between heat and distance produces eggs that are soft and creamy, never tough or rubbery. You've learned to read the egg's texture by how they move in the pan, how they fold over themselves, how they gleam. When the eggs are nearly done but still slightly wet, you remove the pan from the heat entirely. They'll continue cooking from the residual warmth. This is the secret many cooks never learn. Eggs set quickly and hold heat well. They must be removed before they're fully done, allowed to finish on their own terms. You slide the eggs onto a pewter dish, their surface still gleaming with butter. A grinding of black pepper from the mill adds specks of heat across the golden surface. Pepper comes all the way from the east, carried on ships that traverse distant seas. Each grind of the mill represents distance you can't imagine, journeys you'll never take. The eggs rest on their dish, waiting to join the rest of the breakfast tray. Steam rises gently from their surface, carrying the smell of butter and cream. This is simple food, but simple food done well. There is satisfaction in this, in taking humble ingredients and treating them with respect. The sausages cook slowly. The sausages require your direct attention next. You've selected 3 good ones from the stores the sausage maker delivered yesterday. They hang in the larder, fat and heavy with ground pork and spices. The casings are natural, made from intestines cleaned and scraped, and dried until translucent. The filling is ground fine, packed tight, seasoned according to recipes, known only to the maker. The spice blend is familiar to your nose, even before you cook it. Sage dominates, that earthy, slightly bitter herb that pairs so perfectly with pork. Black pepper adds heat, a touch of mace warming and sweet, a hint of nutmeg complex and aromatic. These spices were ground and mixed, in proportions the sausage maker guards carefully, teaching them to no one outside his family. You pierce each sausage several times with a knife point, creating small holes for the fat to escape as they cook. The knife enters easily, the casings giving way to the sharp tip. Without these holes, the casings might burst from the pressure of rendering fat. You've seen this happen. Sausages splitting open over the fire, their filling spilling into the flames. It's wasteful and unnecessary when a few knife pricks prevent it. The sausages go into a shallow pan, arranged so they don't touch each other. Each one needs space to cook evenly, to develop its crust on all sides. The pan goes onto the edge of the fire, where the heat is moderate rather than intense. Too much heat and the outsides will burn before the insides cook through. Too little and they'll stew in their own fat, rather than browning properly. They begin to sizzle almost immediately, the fat inside them starting to melt. The sound is pleasant, a steady hissing that rises and falls as fat drips into the hot pan. The smell that rises is magnificent. Pork and sage, with undertones of warmth from the mace and nutmeg. The spices awaken in the heat, releasing their volatile oils into the air. You turn the sausages every few minutes, using a long fork to roll them to a new position. Each turn exposes a fresh surface to the heat, ensuring even browning on all sides. The casings tighten as they cook, the fat rendering out into a pool. That sizzles in the bottom of the pan. The color deepens, from pale pink to golden brown, to the deep mahogany of perfect doneness. The fat that renders from the sausages has its own uses. It collects in the pan, clear and golden, seasoned by the spices in the meat. You'll save this fat for frying, for flavoring vegetables, for any task that benefits from its savory richness. Nothing in a medieval kitchen goes to waste. While the sausages cook, you check on the bread. The loaves in their baskets have risen beautifully, nearly doubled in size since you shaped them. The linen cloths have lifted, pushed up by the expanding dough beneath. You press a finger gently into one loaf. The dough springs back slowly, showing that it's ready for the oven. The brick oven was fired hours ago by the lowest-ranking kitchen worker, a boy who arrives while it's still fully dark. His job is to build a fire inside the oven itself, letting the flames heat the bricks until they glow with stored energy. The fire then gets raked out, leaving behind a cavity of intense, even heat, perfect for baking. Your assistant tests the oven temperature by holding her hand inside and counting slowly. This is how bakers have judged their ovens for generations, before thermometers existed. The heat presses against her palm, intense but bearable. She counts to 15 before it becomes unbearable. This means the oven is ready, neither too hot nor too cool. She slides the loaves onto a long wooden peel, a flat paddle designed for exactly this purpose. The peel is worn smooth from years of use, its surface slightly curved. from the countless loaves that have slid across it. Each loaf transfers smoothly from basket to peel, the linen peeling away, to reveal the raw dough surface. The loaves enter the oven in a single smooth motion. Your assistant's wrist flicks at just the right moment, the dough sliding off the peel and onto the hot bricks. The oven door closes with a heavy thud, sealing in the heat. The loaves will bake for perhaps half an hour, transforming from pale dough to golden bread. The sausages have reached perfect doneness, their skins crisp and splitting slightly, to reveal the cooked meat inside. The color is a deep golden brown, almost mahogany in places. You transfer them to a wooden board and slice them on the bias, arranging the pieces to show their texture. Each cut releases a fresh wave of aroma. The breakfast tray departs. You build the breakfast tray with care, arranging each element in its proper place. The eggs go on first, still steaming gently on their pewter dish. They've reached the perfect consistency. Soft curds gleaming with butter, flecked with black pepper. The dish sits in the center of the tray, the most important element. The sliced sausages arrange themselves in a fan. Beside the eggs, their cross-sections showing mingled meat and fat, and spices. Each slice reveals the interior, pink where the meat predominates, white where fat has rendered. The crust is visible at the edge of each piece, the dark brown of proper cooking. 3 slices of yesterday's bread, toasted over the fire until the edges char slightly. The toasting has transformed the bread, making the surface crisp, while leaving the interior soft. The char adds slight bitterness. That complements the richness of eggs and sausages. A pot of honey from the Manor's own hives, its surface gleaming amber in the morning light. The bees have worked all summer to produce this honey, gathering nectar from wild flowers that grow in the meadows surrounding the manor. A small dish of butter, pale and fresh from the dairy. A cup of small beer to wash everything down, weak and refreshing and safe. The tray is complete, balanced, ready. Before the tray leaves your sight, you inspect it one final time. The eggs are perfect, soft and golden. The sausage slices glisten with fat. The bread's toasted surfaces show just the right char. Nothing is amiss. This meal will do honor to your kitchen, will satisfy the Lord and his family as they begin their day. You nod to the serving boy, who lifts the tray carefully and disappears through the passage. That connects the kitchen to the rest of the manor. You watch him go, the tray balanced on his upturned palm, his steps careful on the stone floor. The breakfast will arrive at the high table within minutes, still warm, still fresh. The remaining sausages get sliced for the household staff. The portions are slightly smaller, but the quality is the same. Everyone in this household eats well. This is a point of pride for you. The pottage pot empties steadily. As household staff line up with their bowls, you ladle generous portions to each person, the thick porridge steaming in the cool morning air. The barley is tender, the vegetables soft, the ham flavor permeating every spoonful. Each person murmurs thanks as they receive their portion, then moves to find a place to eat. The scullery boys get extra bread, their young bodies burning through food at an astonishing rate. They're growing, always hungry, always ready for more. You give them what they need without comment. The sauce cook receives a larger portion of sausage in recognition of her early arrival and steady work. She's been in the kitchen almost as long as you, has earned her place through years of reliable service. She nods her thanks and eats standing at her station, never truly stopping her preparations. Finally, you allow yourself a moment to eat. You fill a bowl with pottage, the wooden ladle scraping the bottom of the pot. The porridge is thick with barley and onions, flavored with the ham bone. That has been simmering since yesterday. You add a slice of fresh bread, torn rather than cut, its surface still warm from the oven. You stand near the fire, spooning the thick porridge, while watching the kitchen's activity. The warmth of the food spreads through your chest and stomach. The bread tears easily, its crumbs soft and yielding. You dip pieces of bread into the pottage, letting them absorb the flavorful broth. This is how you eat most mornings, standing, watching, never quite stopping. The bread emerges from the oven with a crackling crust. Your assistant taps the bottom of each loaf, listening for the hollow sound. That indicates proper baking. The sound is like knocking on a door, a deep, resonant thump. That means the moisture has cooked out, and the structure has set. Each loaf passes the test. She sets them on wooden racks to cool. The crust is deep golden brown, almost mahogany in places, where it pressed against the hottest part of the oven. Small cracks have opened across the surface, where the heat split the outer skin. When she cuts into the first loaf, steam escapes in a fragrant cloud. The crumb inside is pale and tender, dotted with small air holes. The morning settles. The household has been fed. Breakfast is complete. The first great task of the day is accomplished. The kitchen settles into a different rhythm now, the frenzy of the morning giving way to the steady preparation for dinner. The energy changes, becomes less urgent, more methodical. Dishes pile up in the washing area. The scullery boys turn their attention to this task, plunging their arms into tubs of warm water, scrubbing at plates and bowls and cups. The water grows gray with residue, must be emptied and replaced several times before all the dishes are clean. Tables need wiping. The sauce cook takes a damp cloth and moves across the work surfaces, removing flour dust and food scraps, leaving behind clean wood, ready for the next task. The rhythm of her movement is steady, left to right, top to bottom, missing nothing. Floors require sweeping. One of the scullery boys takes a broom of bundled twigs and moves across the flagstones, gathering crumbs and vegetable peelings into small piles that can be swept into a bucket. This detritus will go to the pigs, who wait eagerly for kitchen scraps. The fire gets banked slightly, reduced to a manageable level. For the work ahead, the roaring flames of breakfast are no longer needed. What you need now is steady, moderate heat. That will last through the hours of preparation. You spread the coals, add smaller pieces of wood, adjust the arrangement, until the fire settles into its working state. The endless cycle of cleaning and preparing continues. This is the true rhythm of kitchen work, not the dramatic moments of cooking, but the constant maintenance. That makes cooking possible. Every task completed creates conditions for the next. Every surface cleaned becomes a surface ready for use. Your hands are rarely still. Even as you oversee the others, you find small tasks to occupy yourself. Sharpening a knife that has grown dull. Sorting through a basket of vegetables. Discarding any that have begun to spoil. Checking the stores in the larder. Making mental notes of what needs replenishing. The morning light has fully filled the kitchen now. The high windows let in slanting beams that illuminate motes of dust floating in the air. The fire crackles steadily, its light now supplementary rather than primary. The herbs hanging from the ceiling sway gently in the warmth rising from the hearth. This is the transition time, the pause between breakfast and dinner. The urgent work is done. The next urgent work has not yet begun. In this space between, there is time to breathe, to assess, to prepare. Working with the pork. A side of pork awaits your attention. It arrived yesterday, delivered by the Manor's own swineherds. After the autumn slaughtering, the pig was raised on the estate, fed on acorns and scraps, allowed to forage in the woods that border the Manor lands. Its meat will be rich and flavorful, the reward for months of careful tending. The side hangs in the cold larder, suspended from a heavy hook, driven into a ceiling beam. The meat is firm and fresh, properly bled and cleaned. The skin still covers the outside, protecting the flesh beneath. You run your hand along the surface, feeling where the muscle and fat divide. You lift the heavy side onto the butcher's block, feeling its weight settle against the worn oak surface. The butcher's block is massive, a round of oak perhaps 3 feet across, worn concave in the center from years of chopping. The indentation creates a natural bowl that catches juices and keeps meat from sliding during cutting. Generations of cooks have stood where you stand now, making these same cuts. The block has absorbed their work, their knowledge, their skill. It's stained dark from years of blood and fat, seasoned like a well-used pan. Every cut you make adds to its history. Your knives wait in their rack, arranged by size and purpose, each one honed to an edge you could shave with, the steel polished to a mirror shine. You select the long blade first, the one with enough weight to saw through joints, but enough precision to follow natural seams. The handle is warm wood, worn smooth by your grip. The shoulder separates first. Your knife finds the socket, where the leg bone meets the body. The anatomy is familiar, learned through years of repetition. You know where the tendons attach, where the cartilage cushions the joint, where the knife will slide most easily. With a few careful cuts and some firm pressure, the joint pops apart. The sound is distinctive, a soft click as the ball leaves the socket. The knife slides along connective tissue, separating what wants to be separate. This is anatomy rather than butchery, following the paths nature has created. The shoulder will become several preparations. The upper portion has enough meat for roasting whole, placed on the spit to turn slowly over the fire, until the outside is crisp, and the inside tender. The lower portion with its tougher muscles, will go into pies and stews, where long cooking transforms it into something succulent. Your hands work with practiced efficiency. The blade moves through meat and fat, with barely a sound, the edge so sharp it parts flesh like water. You've made these cuts so many times that your muscles remember the path without conscious thought. The knife knows where to go. Your other hand steadies the meat, guides it, helps the blade find its way. The belly comes next, that glorious slab of alternating meat and fat that will eventually cure into bacon. The layers are visible even before you cut. White fat striping through pink meat, the result of a well-fed pig that never went hungry. For now the belly must be trimmed and prepared. The excess fat gets set aside in a bowl, thick pieces of pure white that will render down into cooking lard. This fat is valuable, perhaps the most versatile ingredient in your kitchen. It will fry eggs and sausages, will create flaky pastry, will preserve cooked meat. The loin runs along the spine, 2 long cylinders of tender meat, separated by bone. This is the prize of the pig, the cut that will grace the high table. The meat is lean and fine-grained, surrounded by a thin layer of fat that will baste it during cooking. You work your knife carefully along the backbone, following its curve. The blade scrapes against bone, then finds the gap where meat meets spine. The loin releases cleanly, falling away in one perfect piece. You repeat the process on the other side. These loins will become tonight's roast. You trim them carefully, removing the silver skin that would toughen during cooking. The knife slides beneath the membrane, angling upward, peeling it away in strips. The meat beneath is smooth and pink, ready for seasoning. The stock pot simmers. The scullery boys have dragged out the large stock pot, the one that holds enough liquid to bathe in. The pot is cast iron, blackened by years of use, heavy enough to require 2 people. When full, it sits on a low trivet near the fire, waiting to be filled. You direct them to fill it with cold water from the well. They make multiple trips, each time emptying their buckets into the pot until it's 2/3 full. The water is cold and clear, the surface rippling with each addition. Into this pot go all the bones you've separated from the meat, spine sections, their surfaces rough where your cleaver struck, rib bones with their clinging scraps of meat, curved and pale. The trotters, with their complex architecture of small bones and connective tissue. Each piece splashes into the cold water, sinking to the bottom. The bones will release their treasure slowly. Over hours of gentle cooking, collagen will melt into gelatin, giving the stock body and richness. Marrow will dissolve into the liquid, adding depth of flavor. Small bits of meat will contribute their essence to the whole. To this foundation of bones you add aromatics, a handful of peppercorns, their rough texture crunching under your palm as you scatter them into the water. 2 onions, their papery skins left on, to add golden color to the stock. A bunch of thyme from the herb garden, its stems tied together with string. 3 bay leaves, dried and brittle, releasing their sharp scent as they hit the water. The pot moves closer to the fire. You adjust its position on the trivet, finding the spot where it will receive gentle heat without being too close to the flames. Stock must never boil. A rolling boil would cloud the liquid, breaking the fat into tiny particles. That would never clarify. What you want is a gentle simmer, bubbles rising lazily from the bottom, the surface barely moving, the water warms slowly. You watch for the first bubbles, small ones rising from the bottom, like beads of mercury. They appear gradually, growing larger as the temperature rises. When the first bubbles break the surface, you know the simmer has begun. Gray foam rises to the surface as the bones begin to release their impurities. This scum is protein, blood, other substances that would cloud the stock if left in. You skim it away with a shallow ladle, discarding it into a waste pot. The skimming continues for perhaps half an hour, until the foam stops forming, and the stock begins to clear. The stock will cook for hours, extracting flavor and gelatin from the bones. By evening it will have reduced by half, becoming a rich liquid. That sets to jelly when cold. This gelatinous quality is what gives sauces body. What makes gravies coat a spoon? What transforms simple pan drippings into something luxurious? The patience required for good stock can't be overstated. There are no shortcuts. The bones must cook long and slow, their essence surrendering only to gentle heat. You'll check the pot periodically throughout the day, adjusting its position, adding water if the level drops too low, skimming any foam that rises. This is the foundation being laid for future meals. The stock will improve everything it touches. The fat renders. The fat trimmings from the butchery go into a pot, over gentle heat. The pieces are irregular, some thick slabs, some thin strips, all the pure white fat that surrounded the meat. They pile into the pot, filling it halfway. The transformation from solid to liquid happens slowly. The fat melts at a temperature just above body heat, releasing its liquid essence, while leaving behind any connective tissue. You stir occasionally, watching the clear oil pool at the bottom. While the solid pieces float, the heat must stay low. Too much heat and the fat will burn, developing an acrid taste that ruins it for cooking. Too little and the rendering will take all day. You find the balance, keeping the pot at the edge of the fire, where it receives gentle, steady warmth. The fat separates gradually into two components. The liquid, which is the pure lard you seek, clear and golden, settling at the bottom of the pot, and the solid bits, which are the cracklings, pieces of connective tissue, and small amounts of meat that can't melt. The cracklings float on the surface, slowly shrinking as their moisture evaporates. They begin to brown, then to crisp, their texture changing from soft to chewy to crunchy. The smell that rises is intensely savory, the essence of pork, concentrated into small, crispy pieces. You fish them out with a slotted spoon and drain them on a cloth. Still warm, they crack between your teeth with satisfying crunch. The flavor is intense, salty, and rich. You offer a handful to the scullery boys, who accept them like precious coins. Their eyes widen at the treat, their hands reaching eagerly. These small rewards build loyalty, create a sense of family within the kitchen staff. The boys will work harder, knowing that such pleasures await. Those who perform well. The pure lard remains in the pot, cooling gradually into snowy white fat. That makes the flakiest pastry crusts. As it cools, it changes from clear liquid to opaque solid, eventually becoming pale and firm. This lard will keep for months if stored properly, a valuable resource for cooking through the winter. The afternoon unfolds. The afternoon light shifts through the high windows, marking the passage of time. The angle changes as the sun moves across the sky, the beams moving slowly across the floor. Morning has become afternoon. The rhythm of the kitchen adjusts accordingly. The stock pot bubbles gently, its surface barely moving. The bones have released their color, the liquid turning from clear to golden, to a rich amber. The smell that rises is savory and complex, beef and pork and vegetables, combining into something greater than their parts. The sauce cook stirs her pots at regular intervals, each one containing a different preparation. One holds vegetables for tonight's roast, another contains a sauce. That has been reducing slowly, its flavors concentrating as liquid evaporates. A third holds a sweet preparation for dessert, dried fruits simmering in honeyed wine. The scullery boys have finished the morning dishes and moved on to vegetable preparation. Turnips and carrots from the kitchen garden need peeling and chopping. The vegetables are small but perfect, grown in the rich soil behind the manor house. Each one was planted by hand, tended through the growing season, harvested at its peak. The boys work side by side at a small table, their paring knives moving steadily. Peels accumulate in piles between them, destined for the compost heap or the pig pen. The exposed vegetables gleam white and orange, fresh and clean. You oversee the preparation of tonight's dinner, moving through the kitchen with practiced efficiency. The roast requires attention. The vegetables need final preparation. The bread must be sliced and arranged. Each task feeds into the next, creating a flow of work that leads inevitably to the meal. The manor expects guests this evening, which means additional servings of everything. The steward has informed you of the numbers. 5 extra places at the high table. The roast must be larger than usual, the sauces more abundant, the presentation more careful. These calculations happen automatically now, the product of years of experience. You know how much meat each person typically eats, how much bread, how much sauce. All of this knowledge informs your planning, shapes the work that flows through the kitchen. The extra guests will be fed as well as the regular household. The meal will satisfy everyone who sits at the table. The pork loins receive their final preparation. You coat them with a mixture of ground mustard seed and honey, the sweet and sharp flavors balancing each other. The mustard will form a crust during roasting, sealing in the juices, adding a subtle heat. That complements the pork. You tie the loins securely with kitchen twine, creating a uniform shape that will cook evenly. The twine wraps around each piece several times, cinching tight, holding the meat in a compact cylinder. This shaping matters. A round roast cooks more evenly then an irregularly shaped one. The roast turns slowly. The roast goes onto the spit, secured with iron prongs that grip the meat firmly. The spit mechanism is a marvel of simple engineering. A system of weights and chains turns the meat slowly over the flames, ensuring even cooking on all sides. The weights descend gradually as the spit rotates, their potential energy converted into steady circular motion. You check the weights and verify that the mechanism is functioning smoothly. The chain moves without catching. The spit rotates at the proper speed, neither too fast nor too slow. One complete rotation takes perhaps a minute, allowing every surface to face the fire in turn. The meat begins to cook, its surface glistening with the honey and mustard coating. The heat of the fire starts to work on the outside, the sugars in the honey beginning to caramelize. Fat drips into the flames, causing small flares that illuminate the meat from below. The smell fills the kitchen, rich and savory, with sweet undertones from the honey. This smell is the smell of prosperity, of a household that eats well. It drifts through the kitchen, out into the passages, up toward the chambers, where the Lord and his family prepare for dinner. They will know that something special awaits them. They will come to the table with appetite. The roast will cook for hours, requiring periodic attention, but no constant intervention. The spit mechanism does the turning. The fire provides the heat. Your job is to monitor, to adjust, to ensure that everything proceeds as it should. You position a drip pan beneath the roast to catch the fat and juices that fall during cooking. This liquid is valuable, the foundation for gravy. It collects in the pan, clear and golden, flavored with the essence of the meat. By the time the roast is done, the pan will hold several cups of this precious liquid. The evening meal comes together piece by piece. The roast develops its crust, the surface darkening to a rich mahogany. The vegetables simmer in butter and broth, their edges softening, their flavors concentrating. Sauces thicken on the edge of the fire, their surfaces barely moving, as liquid slowly evaporates. Bread from this morning waits in baskets, ready to be sliced and served. The coordination requires constant attention, but no stress. Each element has its timing, its moment when it will be ready. Your job is to ensure that all these moments align, that everything reaches completion at the proper time. This is the art of cooking, not the preparation of any single dish, but the orchestration of many dishes into a unified whole. The evening service approaches. Darkness falls outside the windows. The autumn evening comes early, the sun setting behind the hills that ring the manor grounds. The light in the kitchen shifts from natural to firelit, the flames once again becoming the primary illumination. The roast is ready. You test it by pressing your finger into the surface, feeling the resistance that indicates doneness. The meat yields slightly but springs back, the sign of properly cooked pork. You remove the roast from the spit and let it rest on a wooden board. The juices need time to redistribute, to settle back into the meat. After being driven to the surface by heat, cutting too soon would release these juices, leaving the meat dry and disappointing. while the roast rests. The final preparations happen quickly. The vegetables are drained from their cooking liquid and arranged on serving dishes. The sauces are tasted one final time, adjusted with salt or pepper as needed. The bread is sliced, the thick pieces arranged in baskets lined with linen. Serving staff appear at the kitchen entrance, ready to carry dishes to the great hall. They wear clean livery, their faces washed, their hands scrubbed. They will represent the household before the guests. The roast goes first, transferred to a large wooden board, its surface crackling and golden. The serving boy lifts it carefully, balancing the weight, moving toward the passage with measured steps. The smell follows him, announcing the meal's arrival to everyone in the hall. Then come the vegetables, steaming in their serving dishes. Then the sauces, ladled into small pots. Then the bread, arranged in baskets. Then the additional dishes, the supporting players that round out the feast. One by one they leave the kitchen. You watch the meal depart, each dish disappearing through the passage into the world beyond. The food will be eaten somewhere out of sight. The guests will enjoy it, without knowing the hours of work that went into its preparation. This is as it should be. The best cooking is invisible, creating pleasure without calling attention to itself. The kitchen begins its transformation, from production to cleanup. The serving staff will return with empty dishes and leftover scraps. The work of clearing and cleaning will extend into evening, but for now, there is a moment of pause. The meal has been served. The day's main work is complete. The cleaning begins. Dishes begin returning from the great hall, carried by serving staff, who have cleared the tables. The plates show evidence of good eating, scraped nearly clean, only traces of sauce remaining. This is satisfying to see. It means the food was enjoyed, that your work pleased those who ate it. The scullery boys turn to this new task, with the resignation of those who know. The work must be done. They heat water over the fire, adding it to washing tubs until steam rises. The hot water will cut through grease, will soften dried food, will make the scrubbing easier. They work in pairs, one washing while the other rinses. The first boy attacks each dish with a brush, made of bundled bristles, scrubbing at any residue that clings to the surface. The second boy dips the clean dish into clear water, rinsing away soap and loosened food. Then the dish goes onto a rack to dry. The sound of washing fills the kitchen, the splash of water, the scrape of bristles, the clink of dishes being stacked. It's a peaceful sound, rhythmic and steady. The boys work without speaking, their movements automatic, their minds perhaps elsewhere. Pots are scrubbed and dried. The large cauldrons require extra effort, their blackened surfaces hiding layers of residue. The boys use handfuls of sand to scour the interiors, the grit removing what brush alone can't reach. Gradually the metal emerges clean, ready for tomorrow's use. Surfaces get wiped down. The sauce cook takes a damp cloth and moves across the work tables, removing flour dust and food scraps. She works systematically, left to right, top to bottom, missing nothing. The wood emerges clean, its grain visible, ready for the next day's work. floors require sweeping. The flagstones have accumulated the debris of a full day's cooking. Flour dust and vegetable peelings, crumbs of bread and drops of liquid. All of it must be swept up, gathered into piles, transferred to buckets. The floor emerges clean, ready to receive fresh rushes if needed. The fire receives attention. The day's intense cooking has consumed much fuel. The coals have collapsed into a thick bed, still glowing but reduced. You add fresh logs, positioning them carefully, building the fire back to a level that will carry through the night. The kitchen staff departs in waves. The scullery boys finish first. Their young bodies exhausted from the long day, they move slowly toward their sleeping quarters, their conversation quiet, their energy spent. They will sleep deeply and wake hungry, ready to begin again. The sauce cook follows. After completing her preparations for tomorrow, she removes her apron and hangs it on its hook, her movements slow with fatigue. She has worked alongside you for years, has become as much a part of the kitchen as the pots and pans. She nods good night and disappears through the door. The final rounds. Finally, you are alone. The kitchen settles into nighttime quiet. The sounds of work fading into memory. Every pot is in its place. Every knife is clean and properly stored. The work surfaces gleam from their evening scrubbing. The floors are swept. Everything is as it should be. You add 2 logs to the fire and arrange them carefully. They will burn slowly through the night, maintaining enough heat to keep the kitchen from growing truly cold. By morning, they will be coals, ready to receive fresh kindling and spring back to life. The cycle will continue. The spice chest gets locked. The key turns in the mechanism with a familiar click. You return it to its place around your neck, feeling the weight settle against your chest. The precious spices within are secure, protected from theft or misuse. The larder door receives the same treatment. The lock engages. The key turns. The stores within are safe. These locks are important, not because you distrust your workers, but because valuable goods require protection. A single sack of peppercorns represents more wealth than most families see in a year. You check the grain store one final time, ensuring the door is properly barred against rats and mice. The bags of flour and grain are your responsibility. If they spoil or disappear, the fault is yours. Vigilance prevents problems before they occur. The stars are visible through the high windows, bright in the clear autumn sky. The night is cold but not yet freezing. A few more weeks, and the first hard frost will arrive. Then the character of your work will change, relying more heavily on preserved foods and winter vegetables. But that is not yet. Tonight the autumn continues its gentle descent toward winter. The air is crisp. The sky is clear. The manor is settling into sleep. You walk the perimeter of the kitchen one final time, your footsteps echoing softly on the flagstones. Everything is in order. Everything is prepared for tomorrow. The kitchen will wake when you wake, will spring to life when you arrive. Until then, it rests. Returning to rest, you return to your chamber, the small room that serves as your private retreat. The door opens silently on leather hinges, admitting you to the familiar space. The bed waits, its wool blankets rumpled from this morning. The chest stands where it always stands. The window shows darkness beyond. You undress slowly, hanging each garment in its place. The leather jerkin goes on its peg, still warm from your body. The linen shirt follows, draped to air overnight. Your shoes settle by the bed, ready for tomorrow. The bed receives you with familiar comfort. The wool blankets are rough but warm against your skin. You can still smell the kitchen on yourself. Wood smoke and cooking fat. And the particular scent. That comes from standing near fire all day. It's not an unpleasant smell. It's the smell of your work, your life. The room is small but sufficient. You've lived in this space for years, have made it your own. The chest holds your few possessions, carefully chosen, each one serving a purpose. A spare shirt for Sundays, a knife you inherited from your father, a small wooden box that holds coins you've saved. You lie on your back, staring at the ceiling that you can't quite see in the darkness. Your body is tired, the good tiredness that comes from physical work, from useful effort. Your muscles have earned their rest, your hands still faintly dusted with flour. Lie quiet at your sides. Before sleeping, you mentally review tomorrow's plans. Wake before dawn. Build the fires. Begin the bread. Prepare the morning meal. Continue the work that never truly ends. The list is familiar, varied only in details from day to day. This is your life, built around fire and food, around the never-ending cycle of preparation and service. Some might find it limiting. The same tasks repeated daily. The same space traversed hundreds of times. The same challenges met with the same solutions. But you see it differently. This kitchen is your domain. The ingredients are your materials. Each meal is a chance to create something that brings satisfaction and sustenance to others. There is meaning in this work that has nothing to do with fame or fortune. The larger pattern. Sleep comes easily after the day's exertion. Your body knows the rhythm now, knows when to work and when to rest. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and its own small triumphs. But for now you sink into the wool blankets and let consciousness fade. Brief thoughts drift through your mind, images from the day, the flames climbing through the kindling, the smooth surface of the bread dough, the sizzle of eggs meeting hot butter, the satisfaction of seeing the breakfast tray depart, perfect and complete. These images don't demand attention. They simply pass, like clouds crossing a night sky. Your mind is settling, releasing its grip on the details of the day. You think about the tradition you're part of, though the thought is more feeling than words. Other cooks have stood at this hearth, have made these same motions, have fed this household through seasons and years. They shape the kitchen into what it is. They develop the routines you follow. When you're gone, others will take your place. They will wake before dawn and build the fires. They will knead the bread and cook the eggs. The work will continue beyond any individual life. This is not melancholy. It's reassuring. You belong to something larger than yourself. The fire has burned in this hearth for generations, passed from cook to cook, like a living inheritance. The flames you kindled this morning are the descendants of flames kindled years ago, decades ago, perhaps longer. The fire continues. The work continues. Drifting toward sleep. The kitchen settles into nighttime quiet. The banked fires glow softly, breathing slow and red in the darkness. The stock transferred to a smaller pot continues its gentle simmer. On the very edge of the hearth, the herbs hanging from the ceiling sway. Imperceptibly, in the warm air rising, the manor sleeps around you. Voices have faded to silence. Footsteps no longer echo in the corridors. Even the animals in the stable have settled into their straw. The world contracts to this small room, this warm bed, this moment of rest. Before another day begins, your breathing slows. Your muscles release the day's tension, one by one. First the shoulders, which have carried pots and stirred sauces. Then the arms, which have kneaded and chopped and lifted. Then the hands, which have done more work today than you could easily list. Each part of your body surrenders to rest. The kitchen exists in your mind as a warm presence, waiting for you to return. The fire breathes. The embers glow. The bread dough that you'll mix tomorrow waits to be brought into existence. But all of that is hours away. For now there is only this moment. Your thoughts become less distinct, more dreamlike. Images blend into each other. The orange of flames becomes the orange of egg yolks, becomes the orange of sunset through the high windows. The smell of bread baking becomes the smell of wood smoke, becomes the smell of autumn leaves. This blending is not unpleasant. It's the mind releasing its hold, preparing for sleep. You don't resist it. You let the images flow. Let them merge and separate and merge again. Sleep takes hold. The last conscious thought fades, like ember light dying. Sleep takes its place, gentle and complete. The night moves slowly past the windows, stars wheeling overhead in their ancient patterns. The fire burns low, but never quite goes out, maintaining its vigil through the dark hours. The kitchen waits in darkness, every surface clean and ready. The pots hang in their places. The knives rest in their rack. The work tables gleam faintly in the fire's dim light. Everything is prepared for morning. Everything can wait until morning. The rooster will call. The sky will lighten. You will rise and begin again. Will build the fire and knead the bread, and cook the eggs and tend the roast. The cycle will continue, as it has continued for generations, as it will continue for generations more. But not yet. For now, there is only rest, only the warmth of wool blankets, only the slow drift, deeper and deeper into dreamless sleep. The manor breathes around you, old stones holding old warmth, old rhythms playing out in the darkness. The kitchen is part of this breath, is the heart that pumps sustenance through the household's veins. It rests because you rest. It will wake when you wake. The fire settles into its lowest state. Coals glowing red beneath a blanket of ash, the heat radiates outward, keeping the chill at bay, maintaining the life that will spring forth at dawn. The smoke rises through the chimney, curling into the cold night air, disappearing among the stars, and you sleep, deeply and peacefully and completely. The day is done. The work is finished. Tomorrow will come with its own demands, its own satisfactions, its own small moments of meaning. But tomorrow is hours away. Years of habit have taught your body to take rest when rest is offered. You sleep without dreaming, without stirring, without awareness. The night passes, the stars wheel, the fire breathes, and somewhere in the depths of your rest, your hands remember the feel of bread dough, the weight of a ladle, the warmth of rising heat against your face. These memories live in your muscles, in your bones, will guide your movements when morning comes. For now, they rest too. Everything rests. The kitchen waits. The fire waits. The morning waits. And you sleep on, carried by the darkness, held by the warmth, dreaming of nothing at all. The cycle will begin again. It always does. But for these few hours, there is only stillness, only peace, only the deep, restful quiet of a kitchen sleeping. May your own rest be as complete. May your own sleep be as peaceful. And may you wake when morning comes, ready to begin whatever work awaits you. The fire will be there. The bread will rise. The eggs will cook golden and soft. Everything will be ready. But not yet. Not yet. Rest now. Rest.